Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm JJ Flazanes, your empowerment strategist and producer. Thank you for downloading today's episode. Today, we're going to talk about when you ignore the call. And what we're referring to in this title is the 12 Steps of the Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. And I did a show with Kelly Sullivan Walden probably over a year ago. It's going to be a different number on each one of the podcasts, but I would encourage you to go back and revisit that show about the hero's journey. And the title of it is literally The Hero's Journey. So Stephanie and I are having a conversation today about her hero's journey and what happens when you ignore the call. Before we get into a little bit more about Stephanie and today's show, I have 3 announcements. I apologize in advance. I just did not leave room to remind you guys. A lot of you are on my newsletter or follow me on social media, so you've seen this posted in some place. But we are tomorrow, if you're getting this in real time, on Wednesday, December 15th, we are doing, Stephanie Shea and I from Jan Spiller Astrology, we're doing a free DIY Your Astrology Masterclass. I don't know if you've seen anything about it. I have not announced it on any show before. And if you're getting this after the fact, we will have a place for you to get the replay. So you can sign up even if you can't come live, although we are giving a really fun special free gift if you come live. But it is jjflazanes.com/DIY. It is tomorrow, Wednesday, December 15th, 2021. It's at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be about a 90-minute masterclass. And again, you can always sign up and get the replay later also, but we encourage you to come live so that you can ask us questions. So that's announcement number 1. Number 2, this is the last call. This is the last week for Mastermind applications, JJ's Inner Circle, mastermind.com. Both of those links will be in the show notes. And then last but not least, I am increasing pricing starting January 1st. I have a 2-session starter pack, which is something that I've done astrological readings, I've done some tapping, I've done some core wound work. It's really, there's no structure to it because it's coaching, and so you come to the table. So if you've ever wanted to do any kind of sessions with me, even just to try it out, now would be the time to get that. It is going to go up by $200 on January 1st, and that is jjflazanes.com/work-with-JJ. So again, if it's something you've thought about, this is not the time to put it off. You can buy it now and use it later. I'll give you all of 2022 to use those 2 sessions, okay? So again, all of these links will be in the show notes. So the first thing I want to tell you about Stephanie Dillon is that she is a 3-time breast cancer survivor. Stephanie has a bachelor's degree in nursing from Ashland University, attained her licensed school nurse certification through the Ohio State University, and is the endowment representative for the Ohio School Nurses Association. The majority of her career was spent in the hospital setting in many different capacities and departments, with the last 10 years in education, totaling over 32 years in the healthcare industry. I think her story is inspiring, and I hope you do too. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you, JJ.
So how we got here, those of you who've listened to the intro here, you know a little bit more about Stephanie. And I was really delighted when on our mini VIP session that Stephanie had, because she enrolled in the Mastermind for 2022, we started coming up with things and she got really excited, and she actually offered to help me with some of the people that I know are sitting on the fence right now. And so first, I just want to say thank you, Stephanie, for coming on to the show to share your story. Whether people who are listening join the Mastermind or not is really not the point. It is a obvious benefit, and I only really want to attract the people that are super ready and are ready to take the call. Okay, right. Today's show about when you ignore the call. I want to just warn those of you in a gentle, loving way, because Stephanie's gone through this, and I know she represents a lot of people out there who aren't vocal about it. And I think her story, again, looking at where she's come from and what she's had to overcome to get here and why she was ready to do what she did, are really important lessons and tools for all of you to assess. For those of you that didn't come to my webinar that I did about the reasons, the 5 reasons money holds you back from living your purpose, you know, I kind of covered in that some of the reasons and the stages of where people are on their hero's journey. And we did a hero's journey episode on the podcast a while back. And I would definitely recommend all of you go back and listen to that, the hero's journey. It'll be a different number on each one of the shows. But part of the hero's journey is knowing that it's a journey and here it is laid out for you. Where are you in it? And when you know where you are in it, you know what the next step is for you. So if you're literally sitting you've gotten the call and it's now time for you to take action, but you're denying the call meaning your soul's impulse to expand, your soul's impulse to do something, what the next level is for you. If you're ignoring the call, bad things can happen. And for many of you, that's exactly what needs to happen, especially a lot of you with moons in a earth sign, the Virgo moons, the Taurus moon, sometimes the Capricorn moons. When you have that resistance because you like the safety and illusion of security of being safe in your box, whatever the box is, when you're ignoring the call, again, bad things happen. So I just wanted to set the stage today because Stephanie and I've had like a real quick turnaround, I guess, in our relationship. I just learned in our Inner Circle membership call about a week ago that Stephanie did find me independently. I'd always been under the assumption she found me through Dr. Nasha, but she actually did find me independently. So can you tell us a little bit, Stephanie, about what you were searching for when you did find me and what you were going through and what you were looking for when you stumbled upon, I think it was Fit to Love?
Yes, I did come across you through Fit to Love. And what was happening in my life at that time was I had just been diagnosed with my third bout of breast cancer. And I really was searching for a different healthcare option for myself because I really did not want to go down through chemo and radiation again. So I decided to look for a alternative method, a naturopathic physician that specialized in oncology. And during that time, when I was searching out alternative methods, I decided to start listening to podcasts. And I was independently listening to Dr. Nasha Winters through the Metabolic Approach to Cancer, to a lot of her podcast. And then I also was doing a search more for purpose, spirituality. And that's when I came across yours, the Fit to Love first. I was listening to a lot of the podcasts there, and then I switched over to Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. And I was just very surprised when one day I came across a podcast of you and Dr. Nasha speaking, and it was all really geared towards emotions. And that is where I started to take a different look at my disease process, really just looking at how important the aspect of emotions plays in dis-ease in the body. And so I really binged on many of your podcasts and just I really got hooked in your approach of how you talk about the emotions and how important they are. So I think that I knew I was always searching for like a community to be involved in and not necessarily wanting to be involved in a very particular community like cancer, but just being part of a community that maybe looked outside of the box of cancer and health, but like the spirituality, the purpose, spirit, and energy. So that's where I came across when you started talking about your Inner Circle membership, and I decided that it was time for me to join a community, to step out of my comfort zone and join a community.
Was coming to one of those first group calls uncomfortable for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it was. At first, I just listened, and then I got a little bit braver and used my voice to speak out a little bit and ask questions. But I just could feel it every time I was on those calls. I just wanted to just listen and not really get involved. I think as you started speaking about the boot camp, and that started to really sink in with me. And I really wanted to be a part of it, but then I didn't want to step out of my box, my comfort zone. And, but I had a very deep just inner voice, just telling me that I really need to be open to this and to listen to this. And it took a lot. It really did take a lot for me, because I'm just one of those that I need to be pushed, I think, almost to the limit. I really was on the fence right up to the very last minute about making that decision about coming out to the manifestation boot camp. Once I spoke it out into the universe, that once I made my decision, and really my decision was solidified and became very clear when you sent me my last email and said these words: do you value yourself? And that that really hit home with me and very deep. And I realized, yes, I do value myself, and I need to put myself first. So once I spoke that out into the universe, yes, and said I would commit to coming, that's when a little bit of fear set in, fear of the unknown, traveling across the country from East Coast to West Coast by myself for the first time in a long time. Once I got there and got myself settled, I knew I had made the right decision.
We're going to talk about that transformation here in a second. I want to go back because I've talked about Stephanie a couple times in a couple episodes recently. I believe definitely I mentioned her in the Fit to Love, the 600th episode. And had I known that you started with Fit to Love, I would have asked you to be a part of that, even though you've only been listening for about a year, right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Well, I would have potentially asked you, since you did find it. I mean, the only criteria for that show was that you found me through Fit to Love. And it just happened to be that the three people that I had who came for that recording had been listening for for a pretty long time. But I'm really curious, and that would have been a different conversation with you on that episode about, again, some of the keywords that you were typing in, and what about Fit to Love, or what about some of the episodes spoke to you. But I want to go back to this idea that we're talking about today about ignoring the call. So you were on the webinar and you had already joined the mastermind. So you joined the mastermind at the boot camp. And that was, I mean, I screamed when she did it. And and I'll tell you, we'll go over that transformation, because I really want you guys to understand. And it's amazing when you get to see this in person, when you get to watch someone transform literally before your eyes. And also, quite honestly, like, I still think I'm tired, Stephanie, from like between you and Megan, like pushing you guys. I'm like, I have like the marketing brain in me right now wants to say, oh, keep pushing a little harder for some people to get over the fence. And the other part of me is like, no, I'm too tired. I'm too tired and I don't want to do it that way. I just want to attract the right people and be done with it and not have to push. Now, but then I recognize that if had I not done what I'd done with you, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And I've literally, if we do nothing more past this conversation, you're changed. But it took a lot of effort on both parts to get here. And I know a lot of people out there, I just was interviewed, for those of you that know who listen to the show regularly, and you know that Dr. William Davis has been on the show. And actually the show where he interviewed me is up already. So it's on Defiant Health. We were talking about emotions, and we were talking about, and I think I probably mentioned you in that show too, just because when you can see the transformation in real time, you get committed to what you're talking about on a higher level. And so with you, when you had a call, like, let's go back a little bit into your journey. So you're a school nurse, but you and I had this conversation that you've done a lot of things. You've started at the bottom in certain companies and worked your way up to the top. You've done all kinds of different things. You have a repertoire. You buy all the books, you read all the books, and you're in this healthcare field, and you're working on your own health. And now you know you need to step out. So let's go back to the first time you had a call, so to speak, about stepping out into the new part of who you're supposed to be, and when you didn't listen. I mean, was cancer? Because again, the reason why I think I pushed you harder than I pushed other people is because you have had cancer 3 times in the same, breast cancer 3 times. And so when you're asking me, should you come? Of course, I'm like, do you want to have breast cancer again? I mean, there's definitely a piece that's missing. And if this is a stone you haven't uncovered, really, then it's a big one. And to me, it's the biggest one. I'm going to make claim and lay my claim down to say that I think it's bigger than all the medical stuff. And that is because of epigenetics and quantum physics. And if we get this dialed in, the biology will comply. I mean, Bruce Lipton's book is Biology of Belief, right? So it's like, if we can get that stuff cleaned up, then the body will follow suit. And yes, of course, all the other medical things will have more of an impact. Even Dr. Nasha said on the show or in one of our Instagram lives that if a patient doesn't feel empowered, if a patient's disempowered, no treatment works. So besides cancer, because that's kind of an obvious one, but we can talk about it. When do you think you first got a call that you ignored?
Oh, absolutely. It was through the cancer journey for sure. Of course, the first time when you get a diagnosis, the first time was 2003, and I was a young mom, and I relied on, standard of care. And it really, honestly, it's very fear-based. And they make you feel like you have to make so many decisions right away. And I followed that the first time. And there's always, if you look back on when you've been diagnosed with anything significant, you should always look back to what is happening in your life during those times, because there's almost always essentially some kind of big event or trauma. And you just don't realize that can have a huge bearing on you physically, mentally, emotionally. And so I do truly believe that from the first breast cancer to the second one, there was a 10-year span, and several things, many things happening during that time of raising children and going through some life experiences. And I think when I got diagnosed for the second time, I took that really, really rough, because you essentially know what you're up against, what you're going to go through. And I think it makes it a lot harder. I just wanted to put my blinders on at that time and just move through it all as quickly and as fast as I could. I think with that one, I started to really start to wonder, is there more to this than just my body, not doing what it needs to do? I am a triple negative breast cancer survivor 3 times. And what triple negative essentially is, it's basically your body doesn't recognize a rogue cancer cell. It's a more aggressive type cancer. It shows up, it takes off. Really, it's most breast cancers are hormone fed. 80 to 90% of breast cancers are hormone fed, and mine is not hormone fed. Again, it's triple negative. It's a harder fight, and you have to essentially rely more on chemo and radiation when you have that type of a diagnosis. But anyways, getting back to the point of really realizing on that second one that there was more. And when I say more, I had to look at my whole being, mind, body, spirit. What am I missing here? I have always been more into health. My journey has always been, I was brought up with my mother working in a health food store. So I have always had that drive to take care of myself, and always knowing that I need to exercise and eat right and take extra supplements and that type of thing. So I was already doing that. And I was just wondering, well, what's the piece that's missing? And by the time I got diagnosed on the third time, I realized, it's emotions. And I've always been the type of person that, I'm the rock for everybody. I like to have the control. I want to be able to take care of everybody's needs and want to fix everybody, the caregiver. And we are naturally that way as women, number one, as moms, number two. And then I also chose a career, of course, as a nurse, and we're naturally that way, wanting to care for others and serve others. So it was constantly me always giving all of my energy away and to everyone else and not really caring for myself. And so always having that feeling of having to be strong. Um, and I think that that was a big eye opener for me, because I realized that was a disservice to myself, of not caring for myself and always having to be strong and not wanting to show the emotions and not wanting to move through, when I'm, not asking myself, well, how do I feel about this, or what do I need? And, essentially dumbing that down. Well, if you constantly do that over years and years, where is that energy going to go? And so I really truly believe that, your body is going to fight back. And that's where I really felt I was at that third diagnosis, that I needed to realize how important I am and value myself, and how important it is for me to address the emotions. And even in Dr. Nasha's book, Metabolic Approach to Cancer, in the very last terrain is the emotions. And she leaves that last for a reason, because that is really the toughest one to address, is your emotions. So when I essentially ended up making that big jump, that big leap of coming out for the manifestation boot camp, I knew that was what I was coming for, was to address the emotions.
And I'm glad that you did. I want to at some point here give the depiction, if you will, illustration, the visualization of Stephanie before and Stephanie after. But I still want to go back though to what you think. And I heard you say it, but I want to just be more succinct, because you got breast cancer first, and then there was like missing the call the second time, or and then the third time. Like, what about pre-breast cancer though? Breast cancer itself was a call to do what?
Really to pay attention to me, to myself, for self-care, because as I say, I always, was taking care of everybody else. And that was really the call that I kept ignoring, was taking care of myself completely.
Well, that is one of the emotional roots of breast cancer. Breast cancer is about that mothering aspect, and either something with your mother or being a mother. And again, the lack of mothering that you possibly are even giving to yourself. So that's one of the things when you look up the emotional root of breast cancer that is definitely there. So I want to move into this idea, because it is, Dr. Nasha did put it at the end of the book for, I guess, somewhat obvious reasons. When I was on Dr. Davis's podcast, he said, thank you at the end for the easiest interview I've ever done, because he basically just let me go for the entire time. And I just talked, and he just guided me with very simple questions. He didn't really ask that many of them, but he said, it sounds really like a personalized journey. And I said, well, it is. And it is extremely complex. And in one way, but most people are really afraid of it. And when you look at standard of care that you did the first time, what did you do the second time? And I know the third time you were doing the naturopathic way, but what did you do in 2013?
I did end up again doing the standard of care with chemo and radiation. And that one, I think for me on that one, I was just really, I think that's where my turning point of becoming very bitter and angry and frustrated. That's where, and just downright mad, that's where those emotions set in, and really set in deep, to the point where I was pretty closed up at that point. Wasn't going to budge.
Yeah, I know. I remember. That's why I pushed. You were like moving a boulder. What were some of the thoughts though that you had? Like, what if you just speak to the anger, speak to the resistance? what were you telling yourself, or what were you angry about?
The timing of it was really not good because I had been through a divorce 2 years earlier. That was, that's a very traumatic thing. No matter whether you're wanting, whether it's amicable or not, just going through something like that is very rough. And what happened literally right after 6 months after I got divorced, I met the love of my life. It was a beautiful thing. I met my soulmate. And so I had a year of absolute bliss. And then I got diagnosed in 2013. And that's where that anger and frustration and bitterness set in for me, because I was just like, why is this happening now? When I have just made all these changes and, was really felt like I was, my life was going in a good direction, and I was very happy and content. And then that happened, the second diagnosis. So I can look back and realize that, I did not take care of the emotional part of that. That was still there. It's going to come out one way or another, and it did. It ended up knocking on my door again for the third time in 2019. So I think it's a very real, it's going to be there until that's what I have to say about it. It's going to stay there until you deal with it. I mean, that's what I have realized from everything that I've been through, especially in 2019 when I got that diagnosis. I knew without a doubt, my inner voice just told me it's time. It's now time that you need to address the emotional side of how I feel, what I need, what do I need.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, before you came to the boot camp, and again, this is a random scale, I'm just trying to give a picture, because you had joined the Inner Circle membership and you had been on a couple of calls and you participated a little bit, but you were there and that was great. And you listened to the podcast that comes with it. And then it was this idea of, hey, I'm thinking about the boot camp. And then that conversation started. And then there were a couple calls between me and then Ashley. And then you went to Crystal's tarot reading and she told you to go. And then you came back to the next Inner Circle membership call and you're still sitting there, right there on the fence. And, but prior to the boot camp, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much repressed emotion, fear, anger, whatever, do you think you were holding on a daily basis on a scale of 1 to 10? And again, I know it's ebbs and flows. We have triggers and stuff. I'm just saying your normal daily, I'm holding all of this in, scale of 1 to 10, how much of your energy was being held by emotional repression?
10.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And my husband would agree with that. Because then it would always come out like my kids will tell it too. I mean, just on a dime, something will bother me. And then I'm just yelling and carrying on. So, like I said, it'll come out and sometimes it doesn't come out in good ways. And who are we going to direct that towards? To the people that we love, that we're comfortable with. They end up being the ones that get the brunt of that. So absolutely, I can say it was a 10, always trying to hold on to that.
Okay. And then I'll just give everybody a picture of, so when Stephanie came and she finally did pull the trigger, and literally not the week of, but 2 days before the week of the event, which was in California and she's in Ohio. And so you made the decision, you're coming. And then at the boot camp, I think you crossed your arms and looked at me with this face like, I am not going to let this out. I am not going to break down. I refuse. I'm not doing it. I mean, you're the tightness in your face and in your body, even though you were afraid, you were nervous. I got it.
Yep.
There were more people. And I know you're not the only one. There were other people who was an empowerment strategist. There were people who were scared. There were a few people that didn't come because they upper limited. They made some pretty good excuses as to why they couldn't come at the last minute because they were afraid. And I mean, I honor that you didn't do that because that's an easy thing to do. And I think a lot of people do that. I think a lot of people don't reach out at all because they're afraid to take this journey. They sit and they listen and they get benefit and they thank me later when their lives change. But there is a limit to where you're going to push yourself as a person and allow yourself to grow, because as a quote from Einstein, you can't change the same mind that created it. So if you're having a problem and I need some new tools, I need some new space, I need a higher level of help than what I can do because I got myself here and I keep getting myself here. But the resistance that you had was palpable. I was like, okay, I hope Stephanie's gonna, you were there and you came and it's almost like you looked at me and like shook your head at me. And then by the end, and just to give everyone, to set the scene for everybody, this year, especially since it was me running my whole show, I had a packet of a worksheet for what we're going to do. So we worked with the Big Leap worksheet and upper limits and things like that. And I had sort of my offers in the back also. And there were only 3 different offers. And one of them was the mastermind. And at live events, when you go, people will spend time talking about the offer at length. Usually it's somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes one day, and then another 60 to 90 minutes another day. And I didn't do any of that. I think I pulled the sheet out on Saturday and said, here's what I have if you want to take this further past this weekend and keep the momentum going. Because for me, it's not just, and I'm pretty transparent. Obviously you guys know, those of you listen, I'm pitching you stuff all the time. And it's not because of the money you're going to pay me. It's because I feel where you are and here's the next step. And if you don't take that next step, if you don't keep that momentum going, you'll do what you always do. You may have a little bit of progress and then you're going to kind of revert back to what you're comfortable with. And I think that you listen to me because you don't want that, right? I'm going to make the assumption that if you're still listening and it's been a while and I haven't pissed you off yet and you haven't gone away and been turned off and totally triggered, or at least triggered, and you keep coming back, you understand that the ultimate goal here is your freedom and your expansion and your joy and your manifestation of everything that you want. So when you show up to something like a live event, we can get some real work done. And we're going to talk about that in a second, because it isn't just fluff. We did real work, right, Stephanie?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're 100% right. I was not going to be broke. I had that in my head. I knew I wanted to be, but it's just a battle. It was a battle inside. No, you got to stay strong. No. And I just held on for Friday, all of Friday, and then into Saturday. I think what really helped, I started to change in Saturday. And what really helped that was when we did the healing circle, the inner circle. That is that's right where the things started changing for me. And all I can say is it's because of the vulnerability of everybody else that was in the room. Because you're in a room with strangers, people that you do not know. You did not know them prior to coming to the event. And so there's a lot of trust and vulnerability that takes place when you're in a circle like that. And when everybody's sharing, that's when my heart opened, and listening to everybody, because that's who I am. I'm a caregiver, and you want to help, you want to comfort people. And so by listening to people's stories, I think that's really what got me to budge somewhat then on Saturday.
That's good to know. And I also, did any of the exercises get you to kind of release a little bit or open up?
Definitely I loved like the Ho'oponopono. Just love that. Those simple words of forgiving yourself. That's a really important piece. I loved that one. 4 simple verses that you can say. That opens up your heart. And then I think the letting go, when we did the rock, let it be and let it go. That was really, really important for me.
we're on Saturday. That was actually Sunday, the
Yeah,
rock.
yeah.
But you had told me that you had made the decision you were going to join the mastermind on Saturday before you went to bed, I think, or maybe Sunday before you came down.
No, I actually, honestly, I never looked at any of those sheets until Sunday. And when you went over those sheets, that is when I took my folder that had the word courageous written on it. And I went back to the room and I looked over those sheets. And without a doubt, I knew that I needed to choose the mastermind 2022. I had absolutely no fear or anxiousness or anything like that surrounding it. It was just a knowing. I just knew that it was the right thing to do, that I needed to take the momentum from the manifestation boot camp and go forward with that and start this journey of the mind, body, spirit, all of it, working on all of it. And I just have always known that there's more for me to do, that, I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn. And I just know that I want to serve others in bigger ways. And so I just knew that that was the way to go. And at the same time that I am expanding with myself, working on the emotional side of me, and also being able to do something more, whatever that may be. I just knew that I had to go with that. And I knew if I went home and did not choose to do the mastermind, then I would definitely be ignoring the call. And that's not where I want to be for the fourth time. I don't want to know what the repercussions of ignoring the call for the fourth time, for sure.
Well, so we're at dinner Saturday. A bunch of people had gone to the restaurants out by the ocean, and we could all we could get were like two tables. And I wasn't sitting at the table that Stephanie was sitting at, and I hadn't had a conversation with her at length at all. I mean, I'm there with 40 people, and then Josh and Doug and Michael and, the support and the people that I had. And so I think I'd come over to the table to ask some questions, and I swear I'm talking to somebody. And all of a sudden I hear someone screaming at me. I look over at Stephanie, banging her fist on the table saying, emotions, emotions. It's all about the emotions. And I look at you and I said, oh, yeah, are you just telling me that? Or are you just getting that now? You were like, what was that about? Were you talking to somebody else, or did you just want me to know that you get it now?
Well, we were having a pretty deep conversation at our table, and it was in regards to cancer and the connection of the emotions. So that's it. It's just really come full circle for me, and it's just a very powerful epiphany, really, honestly, and to realize, that everything is connected and you cannot separate anything. You cannot separate the mind from the body. You cannot separate the spirit from the body. And it's just we are whole, and that's the way we are meant to be. And so I think, that it was just a very I'm very passionate about it, I guess you could say, at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. So when
For
Stephanie
sure.
she comes up to me during the break on Sunday, hands me the sheet for the mastermind, and I screamed, and people looked back like, what just happened? Because it just was a reaction, because here's someone who I literally had to push, like literally kick, push, strangle, pull. I mean, you exhausted me. I was like, oh my God, Stephanie, are you going to come or not going to come? And then all of a sudden you're taking the highest level program with a smile on your face. And by that point, your energy was different. You were grounded. You were happy. You were bright. You were glowing. You were handing me this sheet of paper, glowing. And I was like, oh my God, like this woman has totally transformed in 3 days. And I know that you said this on, I think I don't know if we were talking about it probably at the Inner Circle membership call, but I mean, you said that the event was life-changing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I let go. I mean, I've heard you say it, like, you're not going to die, you know, by expressing your emotions, by letting somebody see you cry, by letting somebody see your vulnerability, just showing our humanness. And I think that, the world tries to tend to make you feel like, you got to be strong. You can't cry. You just got to move through it and deal with it. And being there and watching you and watching everybody else, and they're okay with crying. Well, why can't I be okay with crying? I mean, it's a normal, natural thing to be, and that's just one of the ways to release the emotions. And so, yeah, I just think how important that was. Just so it just broke me wide open to step out of my comfort zone, make that decision, and it was in motion. I got out there and went through the 3 days and met some amazing people, and being part of a community. It just, from Friday to Sunday, yes, I was a different person because I let myself open up and be myself and know that it's okay. It's going to be okay. Nothing bad's going to happen. It was definitely life changing. I'm very excited, to see what the next doors are going to open. I'm looking forward to my journey, my healing journey, uh, with my health, with my career. It's just, there's so many possibilities, and it's all because I made that decision to answer the call, to finally give up and give in and let go.
I can't wait to see what happens. I have to ask, and I'm sure people are wondering. So if you feel like it was life changing, what happened when you got home? Did anybody say anything? Were you any different? Do you react any differently? How's life now?
Oh, definitely. My husband definitely addressed that. I mean, he could definitely see a difference in me. Just me voicing more of how I feel, voicing my needs, communicating more, really trying to make an effort of not blowing up and yelling, really looking at what's stopping myself and saying, well, what's triggering me? Why is this happening? Looking more at that.
Well, good. Well, I just want to make sure that it's one of those. I mean, you approach, I guess, me or the Inner Circle membership differently, and even the fact that we're having this conversation because you wanted to help, you wanted to support, you wanted to help people really get that it's time to take action. If you're one of those people who are on the fence, who are wondering what to do and are feeling the fear, because the likelihood is, and the majority of people are going to upper limit. It's just what happens because we are all so afraid of taking a risk and not knowing what's happening next or doing something new. And when it comes to the money, what I learned in the last year with sort of making the Emerging Business Builders Mastermind, which has been effective for some people and have been effective for me. But ultimately, when we say, oh, I can't stretch that far. And I said, okay, well, how far will you stretch? Let's get you moving in the right direction. For some people, that's exactly the next step they need to take. But for some people, it's the step they will take because they can, and it doesn't stretch them. And I came up with that. I think I was talking to Wendy on a call, and it just kind of came out. And I said, if it doesn't stretch you, it doesn't change you. It's not that someone has all the money sitting in the bank and says, yeah, I can afford to do that. In fact, the people that need to do it are the ones that can't afford to do it because they can't afford to keep life going the way it's going. And I know that sounds like possibly counterintuitive, but it really is. Like when you want to go somewhere new, you want to attract more, you want to make more, you want to be more. And then you don't go past that, like you said, their comfort zone, and you decide to make a decision that kind of keeps you feeling safe. It's not how it's going to change. You're not going to, most people, now I'm weird, and all you got to do is kind of tell me. I have to see, I have an Aquarius Mercury, which I see sort of what's coming. And I operate from that that sort of big picture down the line. If I do this for 20 more years, where am I going to be? And most people make like, they're not good long-term thinkers. They're short-term thinkers, and the short-term thinkers always want something more, but aren't willing to learn how to be a long-term thinker. And so anyway, I'm glad to hear that your husband could see a difference in you. I see a difference in you. The fact that you wanted to be able to share your story, and that you are committed and excited. And we already figured out ways for you to make the money back and more, right? In our one little 2-hour session. And that's just what I want to encourage people to consider. If you're, and again, I'm not going to push. Doug and I had that conversation today in our hike. I said, I'm at this crossroads of wanting to, like, if you look at what I did last year versus what I did this year. Now, this year I had the live event and a lot of people joined at the live event. There's still some spaces open. And I'm sitting here going, well, this would be the time in my marketing brain to like beat them over the head a little bit more. JJ, keep pushing a little harder. And I'm like, no, I won't do that. You know why? Because while it's still a significant investment, it's still underpriced. And I overgive and I overdeliver. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't like, there's my next level of healing is to stop the overgiving. And I don't want to do it. It's not, and little by little, every year, my boundaries get tighter. And I honor myself a little bit more. And I still learn the lessons that everyone else is learning about self-respect and respecting myself so I can get, the respect whatever, like if I have a trigger or if I get upset, I question, what is this about? And from both family as well as from my work. And I've come up with some pretty deep shit, which I'm now working on and manifesting and moving through into that next level. So I appreciate that you've come on to tell everybody about your story and answering the call. And is there any last words of encouragement for the people out there who, we have a bunch of them that are on the fence and they know who they are and them too, a lot of them. And so if, and you can speak without saying their names directly to them right now, if there's something that because I'm sure they share some of the same fears that you had, even just about coming out, yours happened quickly. Your fear was even just taking the step onto the path. And once you were on the path, you're like, okay, I don't want to have to get a knock on the door again that I'm not following the path anymore. So I'm going to go deeper into the path. Some people who haven't had cancer or any major trauma in their life thus far, except possibly struggled in relationships, struggle in health, and maybe they want to make more money or have more, they're not they don't have as much fear about the bad things that could happen if they ignore the call. But guys, we don't want to wait until that. You don't want to wait until there's some big, ugly, hairy monster at your door. We want to get out ahead of it. That's the whole point of law of attraction. So Stephanie, if you had any last words of wisdom for those people who are quietly like thinking about it, they're on the fence. They know that they should, but it's becoming this money conversation or this fear conversation, this scarcity conversation. What would you say to them?
Well, I have to go back to, what I was feeling and suppressing. I knew that, of course, I have a fire in me, a light in me, to never give up. I am that was put in to me, obviously, because of, going through that 3 times. But, I was hiding. I was hurt. I could be around people and still feel alone. But I still, I was suppressing emotions and feelings. I was not listening to my inner voice. I wasn't speaking up, and, feeling like that for so long, and making that big step and realizing that I love what you always say about fear and what's on the other side of fear. It's excitement. It really is just excitement. And, I realized that, we put that all in us, like we're just so afraid, but afraid of what? It's really afraid of the unknown. And so I just want to bring it full circle and just say that you just need to be brave enough to push through the resistance and put it aside and don't be afraid to answer the call. That you just need to stop and listen to that inner voice inside, and not be afraid to answer that call. And then, step out, take that next step. It's okay. It's going to be okay. Nothing's going to happen. And it's just really important to invest in yourself. So important. And I just realized for me that it was long overdue for me, and that I needed just the right person to show up for me and to say it's okay, and to support me and push me. And that ended up being you, JJ, which I am so thankful that I listened. And I'm so thankful that you pushed me the way you did. And I just want to say I've always been a true believer in everything happens for a reason, as well as there's a season for everything. And I just feel like the timing is essential. And for me, it was absolutely essential that I answered the call, and I stepped out of my comfort zone and did that. I'm so appreciative of the fact that I listened. And maybe at this point, maybe this is the right timing, exact right time for somebody else to start their journey in fulfilling their lifelong dreams and their purpose. I feel that life is meant to be lived beautifully. And I can remember back when we were on that webinar, the 5 reasons money holds you back from living your purpose. And I remember when you asked us to write down, what if we could have anything, what would we have? And I wrote down things to that. But then after that was over and I reflected back on that, I realized that I already have everything, that I have been blessed in all aspects of my life. I'm a firm believer that we learn more in the valleys than we do in the peaks of life. And I just feel at this point in my life that I have really truly been blessed. And I just truly appreciate all of my experiences, because it has brought me to this point right now where I'm at. And I am so thankful that I made that big leap and I joined the mastermind. And I think at this point, everything that happens for me now will be like the icing on the cake. And I'm very excited about what 2022 holds for me. And I'm looking forward to taking this journey with you and all the others that have joined the mastermind with us.
Me too. And it's a good thing you know a lot of them already. So,
Yeah.
which is really fun to have from the live event. So thank you, Stephanie, for sharing your story. I think that what you bring to the table also with the acknowledgement and realization, and even coming from a medical, you did deal with health. You are a nurse. You have lived a healthy life and have understood some of the connections, but just to come to this and then to just share people, because guys, even if you don't like, it's nothing that you're going to do, you have to be, you can't tell me you're not inspired by Stephanie's growth, and it plants a seed in your own brain for when you're ready to take that leap into whatever is next for you. But a bunch of you who, and you know who you are, we would love to have you join us in 2022, because it's going to be a pretty amazing year. I mean, lots of good things are supposed to happen astrologically in 2022. And I think as the world is changing and growing and expanding in the ways that it is, even with all the contrast, it's calling us all to do things differently. And I definitely want to honor that those of us that are moving forward to keep growing, keep expanding, keep changing, and keep appreciating what we currently do have. And that's half the battle. So Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. And for those of you that are considering it, obviously Stephanie will be in the group. So you will,
Yes.
and you've heard from Michelle also, who's in the group. Michelle was on the Fit to Love 600th episode. So I'd love to have you join us. And thank you, Stephanie, again. And well, I'll keep you posted as we develop. I mean, we have a lot of things in the works for Stephanie and her business, which she's going to work on some of that before January. And then come January, you'll hear about what they're doing. And if there's something that they have to offer that is of interest to you, I will absolutely make it known. So thank you, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you, JJ.